Have you been keeping up with Russia's economic situation? It was exceeding expectations a short time ago, but now things have changed. After Putin's invasion in February, the West imposed strict sanctions on Russia, which included disconnecting some Russian banks from the worldwide financial system and seizing offshore central bank assets worth approximately $300 billion. These measures were effective, resulting in the downgrading of the ruble and the end of the Russian securities exchange. So, what are the three reasons why Russia's economy is done? Stick around as we explore the impact of decreased earnings, scarcity of resources, and recent departure on Russia's financial prospects, including the potential consequences of the ongoing war in Ukraine. In the subsequent months, the economic prospects of the nation have shown signs of improvement. The ruble surged to a two-year high due to a combination of record hydrocarbon exports and interventionist economic policies, enabling the Russian government to operate with a substantial budget surplus. This surplus was utilized to fund the invasion of Ukraine. However, it should be noted that the strength of the ruble was artificially boosted by the central bank's recent regulations requiring all exporters to relinquish their foreign currency. Additionally, specific industries such as finance and car manufacturing were struggling during this time. Despite initial predictions of a record-breaking recession, the Russian economy has performed better than anticipated, with GDP forecasts revised upwards. In April, the IMF projected an 8.5% decline, which was revised to 6% in July. The most recent projection in October forecasts a contraction of only 3.4%. Despite some recent positive developments, the available data suggests that Russia's economic prospects are deteriorating. Inflation is still hovering around 13%, and early indicators suggest a 4% year-on-year contraction in the third quarter, officially putting Russia into a recessionary state. Our examination will dig into the variables that have prompted the new slump in Russia's financial standpoint, such as the impacts of scaled-down oil costs and a drop in demand for Russian natural gas within Europe. This development has resulted in a reduction in Russia's budget surplus, which would make it challenging to finance the ongoing war. Additionally, we will analyze the potential consequences of these economic factors on the Kremlin's ability to secure victory in Ukraine. According to our viewpoint, Russia's financial possibilities are declining because of three factors: the decrease in oil and gas costs, the shortages brought about by sanctions, and the departure of human resources. The drop in oil and gas prices is the first factor to consider. At the beginning of Putin's intrusion, Brent crude, which is the worldwide reference for oil costs, was trading at around $100 per barrel. However, because of the international vulnerability brought about by the conflict and the ensuing months, prices rose considerably further, settling at around $123 per barrel by mid-June. It is clear that Russia benefited significantly from this turn of events, considering its situation as the second largest worldwide oil exporter, outclassed by only Saudi Arabia. Additionally, the surge in gas prices brought even more favorable outcomes for Russia. Prior to the invasion led by Putin on February 24th, European gas prices were already soaring, with the Dutch TTF serving as the reference point, trading at approximately 80 euros per megawatt hour. This is noteworthy as throughout the year of 2021, the TTF traded at an average of 20 euros, providing necessary context. In the aftermath of the invasion, gas prices in Europe surged to around 350 euros per unit as countries sought to stockpile fuel ahead of winter. Despite Russia's discount oil sales, high prices for oil and gas resulted in a windfall for Russia. The Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air determined that Russia's hydrocarbon export revenues were almost 20% higher than average, yielding nearly 1 billion euros daily. Due to this outcome, the Kremlin managed to amass a considerable surplus in funds, totaling more than 250 billion rubles in January and approximately 1.4 trillion rubles in June, when oil prices were at their highest. This money was critical in providing Putin with the financial leeway to continue and expand the Ukraine invasion. In the earlier month, there has been a diminishing in the costs of oil and gas, which has provoked a reduction in Russia's budget surplus. This can be credited to diminishing popularity in China and a worldwide monetary slump. The present market value of Brent crude stands just above $80 for each barrel, marking a notable decrease compared to its past peaks in June. Additionally, the TTF in the Netherlands has decreased to slightly over 100 euros per megawatt hour, which is still higher than pre-war averages, but down 60 from its August peak. The volume of gas that Russia exports to Europe has undergone a significant drop of roughly 80% from February, going from 2.5 billion cubic meters to approximately 500 million. Because of the decrease in export volume and the lessening in oil and gas costs, there has been a decrease in income, prompting a fast consumption of Russia's budget surplus. Stunningly, the budget surplus declined by 95% in October, falling from 1.4 trillion rubles in June to a simple 50 billion rubles. This development is significant since it impairs Russia's capacity to fund its conflicts in Ukraine, particularly as sanctions have curtailed Russia's access to global financial borrowing. Let us proceed to the second cause of their difficulties: shortages that were induced by sanctions. During the time when the Russian economy was exceeding expectations, the state media was filled with headlines that boasted about the supposed ineffectiveness of Western sanctions. Nevertheless, according to Russia's central bank, the impact of these sanctions were not expected to be immediate since Russian industries could depend on stockpiles to manage for the initial few months. As anticipated, these dwindling stockpiles have now resulted in scarcities, and it is apparent that Russia is growing progressively desperate for specific components, particularly semiconductors. As per a report from October, Russian companies attempted to reduce the impact of sanctions by importing more from China. However, it appears that the fraction of foreign imported components has surged from a meager 2%. This is possibly due to the credible Chinese companies declining to engage in trade with Russian businesses to avoid damaging their reputation or facing secondary sanctions. Consequently, Russia is dependent on unreliable Chinese companies. In August, Russian authorities resorted to dismantling planes for parts due to severe shortages and no trustworthy source of imports. Recently, evidence suggests that Russia is clandestinely importing European-made appliances like washing machines, fridges, and pumps to acquire crucial components, driving up the cost of electronics. These shortages will also weaken Russia's capacity to manufacture military hardware and weapon systems, which is of utmost importance for the war effort. Russia is experiencing a third problem, which is the departure of skilled workers. Skilled and specialized workers are vital to any modern economy, and Russia has lost a significant portion of its human capital since Putin's invasion in February. As per gauges, around 250,000 to 500,000 people, for the most part comprising of men who are of military age, escaped Russia during the underlying half year of the contention. According to British intelligence, approximately 170,000 people left the country after the partial mobilization announcement in late September. The individuals who are departing are typically of higher socioeconomic status and possess superior educational backgrounds than the average Russian citizen. This departure of a substantial number of well-educated young males will inevitably diminish Russia's pool of human capital. Furthermore, this immigration will result in a more competitive labor market and contribute to inflationary pressure, which is already surpassing the central bank's objectives. To summarize, the combination of decreased earnings, scarcity of resources, and recent departure will have a detrimental impact on the economy of Russia, thus affecting its capacity to engage in warfare. This is due to the fact that a reduction in revenue constrains the amount of funds available to Putin for financing the invasion. This could be why Russia's budget for 2023, which was released in September, only included a 40% increase in military expenditure, representing merely 4.5% of GDP. Although the recent partial mobilization has resulted in a 30% increase in total troop numbers, the increase in spending per soldier is not particularly significant. Additionally, it is important to note that throughout history, successful full-scale wars have necessitated spending over 5% of GDP, which Putin has not yet committed to and may not be capable of doing. In the event of a continued economic downturn in Putin's regime, it is possible that his military campaign could encounter greater difficulties. The lack of resources and funds could cause the war effort to stall, leading to a possible ceasefire or even a withdrawal from Ukraine. Furthermore, the economic crisis could lead to widespread discontent among the Russian population, leading to civil unrest and a potential threat to Putin's hold on power.